imaginary.
Oh,
Hello.
are you ready?
To be within
The wind.
We are introducing a beloved human around these frightfully delightful halls. We are welcoming our guide, mentor, an incredible author,
and not your mama's medium.
Sterling Moon.
Welcome, Sterling.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's so good to see you both.
Thank you. You're actually our very first guest on the podcast.
Yeah.
So this is very special. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. And I haven't gotten to be an interviewee in a really long time. So I'm always in the interviewer seat. So this is a real treat for me too.
That's very nice. Not to have to deal with all the post-production
stuff.
It takes a while.
It does, right?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you have your own podcast, which I will link in the show notes. People should check it out. Yeah.
Something that we do at the top of the show is share our frights and delights from the in-between time. So Luna and I used to record every week. So we would be save a little tidbit from our week and try not to text each other about it. So we're going to do that. And we invite you to do that as well, Sterling. So
will do.
The frights can be anything defined as something that provoked curiosity. If you were startled by anything, I mean, everything's pretty startling right now.
I was going to say, I've been startled 10 times today alone.
Yeah.
Everything. I wake up and I'm startled. Oh my gosh.
There's no baseline anymore.
Yeah,
nope.
No shortage.
And then a delight can be just anything that tickled your fancy, like a little bit of whimsy or something like that. So, Luna, why don't we start with you?
Okay, so I'm going to do mine backwards because it makes sense. So I'm going to start with my delight. So my delight for this week is we moved here almost a year ago. So I moved from the province of Ontario to BC, and I realized I hadn't got a library card yet. So the other day I went to the local library and I got my first BC library card. And it's cool because I've made sure to have one for the last 4 places I've lived in, and I have a little collection of them.
Oh, cute.
But my fright, to piggyback off of that, is while I was browsing our small little library, it was really lacking in paranormal and witchcraft books, and I was a bit sad, disappointed. But I guess that's what happens when you live in a very one religion town.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a good jumping off point to talk to the folks who are at the library. I'm going to request, Talking to Spirits by Sterling Moon.
Yeah. Okay, that's it. That's it for me. Okay. Do you want to share yours now, Sterling?
Sure. I feel because the world is a constant startle, it's just a constant startle response. I feel my frights and my delights. I was thinking about this in the shower today, and I was, because I'm in the midst of it all. I feel I'm a perpetually delighted person. I find so much joy in so many little feeding the crows in my neighborhood and loving on my animals. And I have an 8-year-old who constantly cracks me up. And so I feel and I have great friends who send me the dumbest memes. And so I feel I'm constantly delighted. But, because I live, I apologize to Amanda and Luna on behalf of the entire, I'm going to be an ambassador for the United States, to all the good people of Canada. Holy shit. I'm so sorry. Can I swear on this?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Thank you. I was oh boy, probably should have double checked that. So I feel I'm going to start with my delight, and this might not be something that is a delight for everyone, but I've been talking with a lot of my other friends who do. So I'm a full-time medium, professional spiritual worker, teacher, author, podcaster, all the things. And so I've been talking with some of my peers who do similar work to I do. And one of the things that we've all noticed is that there's like a lot more people are coming to us with hauntings, like really
Uh,
loud hauntings, and a lot of us are experiencing really
mhm.
loud spiritual activity. And so one of the things that I think happens in really loud times is that spirits have things to say, or maybe
Mhm.
they get activated, and I don't know what it is. But I've been talking with another friend of mine about, like, one of the like traditional ways that you can work with that is give those spirits a job. And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of, I would say there's a lot of people that are deserving of a good haunting. And so I've been having a lot of fun thinking about, like, how, like, ways to summon in tranquil spirits and like
Yeah.
talk to them and give them jobs and things like
Yeah.
that. So I've been having a lot of fun with that concept and playing with that. And then my fright, I think too, part of it is like it's in the similar vein. I think there's a lot of things to be scared of. And I also think that we're in this, like, we're being handed an opportunity to like show up. This is like one of
Yeah.
those times where our grandchildren, or who, even if you don't have children in your life, like the descendants that come later will look to this period of time in history to say, how did
Yeah.
my family act?
Exactly.
And so I think that it's like, and it's one of those things where I'm constantly inspired by magical communities. I mean, y'all know that I spent 20 years as a
Yes.
professional advocate for victims of crime. I did like professional policy advocacy. I was down at the state capitol a lot. I interned on like a US Senate campaign back in the day. This is something I went deep into.
Yeah.
And the magical community reminds me a lot of like grassroots, like
Mhm.
advocacy and activism. And
Agree.
so, but I also see a lot of like, oh, that's right, we're video, so I can wave my hands. Like, I
Yes,
feel this
yeah.
like frenzied and like I'm
Yeah.
mad and I'm shouting and I'm doing a lot of my shouting online.
Yeah.
But I see a lot of passion and not a lot of like know-how with organizing and like
Yes.
being effective and coalition building and getting strategic. And so it is a little bit of my fright that this is a moment we could miss. We
Yeah.
could fuck
Yeah.
up, pardon my
Yeah.
language. And
Yeah.
so so in the back of my mind, and like I'm constantly talking with my local, peers and collaborators on, we got some plans, but that's my
Yeah.
fright, is that we're not going to show up to the moment in the way that we need to. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. To make
Um,
those
sorry, that went deep.
sustainable changes.
Went
that's
heavy.
No,
okay.
it's really important. I mean, there isn't a conversation with Luna and I that doesn't end in anti-capitalism, fat
Yes.
phobia or patriarchy.
Yeah.
Honestly, it is always
Yeah.
it always comes around, no matter whether we're talking about current events
Hmm.
or just raising children, or
Hmm.
it's all interconnected. And I
Yeah.
think it's
Oh.
a really important point that you make, that there is so much energy, and there needs to be an outlet for people who are feeling that urge to do
Hmm.
something,
Yeah.
and for it to matter.
Yeah. And this really ties into your last podcast episode
Hmm.
that you did.
Yeah.
Just in case people don't know, it's called A Magical World. And you talk a lot about
Second to last
activism.
episode, because you
Is it?
just you just uploaded one.
Oh, my
Yeah,
bad.
that
My
if
No,
it
bad.
was
no,
the
no,
first,
no, no.
no, no, no. I mean, honestly, I talk about it in the one that just came out yesterday too.
Yeah.
This is
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm coming home to my activism, and like
Yeah.
I'm having a bit of a full circle
I
like
love
initiatory
Oh
experience.
my
And so
gosh, I love
I'm gonna
that
be
so
not
much.
shutting up about it like
Good,
constantly. Like,
Yeah.
so
good. Yeah.
Good.
I
Good.
mean, we need those anchors in our community. I
And
mean,
not just
yeah,
that, but you gave some really good practical mundane advice for what people can do, as well as magical advice. So I
yeah.
really liked that balance in that episode.
thank
So
you.
people should listen to it if you're feeling stuck and
100%.
where
Yeah.
to start. Yeah,
Yeah.
Thank you.
no
Yeah.
problem. Okay, your fright and delight.
Oh my God. Um I forgot. Okay, so I have visuals. So okay, so my fright is that I had object permanence as an ADHD witch. I've been doing the Raunakta 13 rough nights ritual from the 26th of December until the January 6th, for, I think this is my fourth year. and I did something a little different, which means that it was outside of my routine, and I forgot to do the last part of my routine. And I realized I felt like it was too late, which was frightening. I was like, oh fuck, I just wasted 13 wishes, and I'm fucked for the rest of the year. But then I went outside, I took my cauldron, I went outside. So that's my fright. I thought I was like the worst witch. And then I went outside in the freezing cold. I lit this cauldron, and I gave all the wishes up. And then I do fire scrying a little differently. I use technology, so I take like random screenshots afterwards. And we're going to show you this picture.
Oh, wrong one.
Wrong one. That's for after.
Oh, no, it did the right
it did.
one.
Okay. So yeah, this one was one of the first that I noticed. And I see like a little, like a wiry or like lithe looking hair. And I've been like a rabbit. And I've been working on some really important work with discovering like what my fetch or my spirit familiar is, and who does that, like who leads the work in that realm, or like through the hedge. And so that was a really, it felt very potent. So that was my delight, was seeing that I didn't like necessarily fuck it all up. It was just what needed to happen.
Yeah.
Cool.
It happened just as it needed to.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. And it was almost exactly a month apart too, January 6th to February 6th.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Nice. Time is an illusion. I tell myself that all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were just kind of talking about how like time can stretch sometimes. When you ask me, do you ever get in the shower and it feels like it's been hours, and you get out and it's only been 17 minutes?
17 minutes exactly.
God, I feel like I have the flip side. As my husband and son will tell you, that like my son is just like, Mom, you take forever. I'm like,
that's
don't
what
judge
my
me.
kids say.
Like, don't judge me.
Yeah.
It's my ritual. My ritual
just
time.
need it. Yeah. Okay, so thank you for participating in our Frights and Delights.
Yeah.
And
oh my God. Yeah, I love a theme. I love a theme question. I love a theme.
Okay, so I'm sure everyone knows that we love you. And I don't know if everybody knows, but we are also among a wonderful group of folks who are in your Divination Academy. And we are alumni to your wonderful, in what do you call it? Not your capstone. I can't remember what you call it, something, and it feels so like juicy and fundamental.
Touchstone?
No. It's
I call it like my core programs of like the
yes, yeah, okay. A cornerstone?
Yeah. I don't know. Caps. Yeah, you know what? There is a word that I use, and I can't remember what it is.
You use capstone for Beyond the Veil, I think, right? But there is
they're just like my core programs of the school, and they're the only there's only 3 programs that are like the avenues into that SMDA world. That may change eventually, but for right now, it helps to keep it manageable, and also I feel like it kind of like keeps the community vibe. Like there is kind of like it's a little bit of a clubhouse, like especially in the Discord, which I want to maintain that.
Yeah. The Discord is very special. Yeah, there's so much community, and everybody jumps to action too. I love that when there's a question, there's always a number of different perspectives, and everybody feels very comfortable and confident to share and explore. Like, even if, I don't know if this works, but this is my thought on it, being able to explore it.
Being open-minded.
Yeah. It's delicious. So I'm an alumni for Modern Mediums 2023. Luna is a Modern Medium alumni 2024. And the sequence, I don't know if I'm sure you are like aware on like the fringe of how we came into your sphere of influence, but
Well, I know there was a book that flew off of a shelf,
yes.
and I know that you have been so kind and like sending more of your friends my way. Like y'all are like
Yeah.
10% of the SMDA at this point.
Hey.
And also too, I just want to like interrupt for a hot second and just say I'm so proud of you both. I mean, I'm
Hey.
Thank
so
you.
proud of the work that you're doing and that you're like taking up space and making space for yourselves in like the paranormal world. Cause that shit ain't easy. And that's why I kind of was like, you know what? I'm tired of being bullied and I'm tired of
Yeah.
being minimized. And so we can do this too. And I'm proud of like you all doing it in your way on your home turf. It's just been so cool to see. So sorry to
Thank you
interrupt,
so
but
much.
Oh God, please don't be sorry. That is so fucking kind.
Yeah.
oh,
Thank you.
you're welcome and thank
If
you.
if we don't do anything else in this life but to have made you proud in that moment, I'm cool. I'm
Woo.
cool. I'm cool.
Oh,
um but I love a date. So I love like anniversaries and things like that. So May 17th was when that infamous book, your book, fell from the shelf of the store that I was working at. I was trying to recreate this meme. So I'll show you the meme,
Okay.
or Luna will pull it up. And it's a Madam Mim looking absolutely fucking unhinged. And I was just in a silly, goofy mood. And I pulled out like I think, what deck is that? This Might Hurt. And I had like a bunch of shit in my hands. And then all of a sudden I hear thump, and I'm holding all this shit in my hands with I'm like trying to like take
Take the
the
picture.
picture, and I turn and I see that I like noticed that it was your cover. I love your cover is very like it's vibrant but not in your face. Like it's noticeable
Yeah.
the way that the graphics are on your book. It's very, very well done. And so I hit record, but then the store owners actually caught it on their security footage, which is so cool. Like I really wish that it had been like up a little higher, just so that you can really tell that like how it fell off the shelf.
Yeah.
But I'm happy with the evidence that we got, because it was really, really fun.
I'm
That was
gonna
such a
show
fucking
it.
cool moment.
Hopefully it won't be too loud, or do you want me to mute that part?
It's up to you.
Okay. So
This is so cool. We got it on the cameras at work. You can actually see that I noticed like the sound just before it fell. Like I could hear it. Look at my face right here. Like my jaw dropped. Yeah. I was like, fuck.
because you were alone at the time
I
too,
was
weren't
alone.
you?
I was, yeah. Well, I look at how unhinged I looked. If anybody had come in at that moment, I would have been also like embarrassed, like a little embarrassed, But then when that happened, I was like, okay, I'm paying attention,
Yeah.
because
oh my gosh.
I had just purchased your book like a week before, and I purchased it with the Oregon Witch on, I can't remember what their name is now.
The Practical Guide to
The Practical
Paranormal
Guide to the
Witchcraft.
Paranormal,
Oh,
yeah,
got
a
that one.
Witch's Guide to the Paranormal, I think.
Oh, I'll have to check that one
We'll
out.
link it. We'll link it.
Yeah.
But I was gonna start reading that one first, and I decided obviously I cannot.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I started reading yours first, and then I signed up for your newsletter, and then
We did Month of
and then
Mediumship.
I was like, you want to do this? And you were like, yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Yeah,
this
and it
looks
was
great.
so fun.
It was so fun.
Yeah.
You.
That's something that I hope people will check out too,
Yeah.
is the Month of Mediumship, because
Yeah.
you do things in a way that's very different than a lot of other people come at that kind of practical skill building with the pictures.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Well, I mean, learning. So, first of all, Amanda, that was the very first time you and I had ever chatted. Was you just sent me that video, and I was, oh my god, it cracked me up so much. That is not. You are not. I wish I had saved the message. No, you know what? I think I did save the messages, but Instagram did me dirty a long time ago, and I lost like my
Yeah.
legacy like account that I'd had, and so I
Yeah.
lost all the documentation of this. But that is not the only time my book has flown off a shelf at somebody. I had like one or two other people who also had that experience. And I'm like,
You know,
nice, that
Interesting.
feels good. I like it. It's like
yeah.
the
Yeah.
word's getting out over there too.
Yeah. Well, and
Um,
that's what it feels like. It feels like um
It's part of the egregore of your
yeah,
book, I feel
well,
like.
it's like yeah, like it just like flies at people that really need it, or
Yeah.
like
oh,
that need that like confirmation or that affirmation that
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey, check this out.
Yeah.
hey, Thunk. And I will literally hit you in the head if you don't like listen. That's very my style too. I'm not very subtle. But I will say for the month of mediumship and the picture reading, and because we do that in modern mediums, and we do that with any psychic development, training that I offer through what I teach. And for anyone who's maybe hasn't heard about the month of mediumship, it's something that I offer every summer, usually in July, for free. It is housed on my Patreon, though. It does go behind a paywall at a certain point.
Mhm.
But if you're a paid member, then you can have access to the past ones. But you get to practice reading pictures, and that's something that I was taught very early on when I was apprenticing as in trolldom with my mentor Johannes Bjorn Gardbach in Sweden, and so that's kind of a way that I have evolved my trolldom practice too. So.
That's cool. Yeah.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I had a question about um during Modern Mediums 2023. You mentioned you being a guest at at the table of trolldom at first, and when you were talking about your journey into trolldom. Can you expand on that like a little bit, and maybe talk about what it means to you to be like a meaningful guest um as part of some like a different magical practice, or like one that you're wanting to devote to but are unsure of how to approach it? Yeah.
So, I think that, and this is, you all know that I'm kind of long winded, so I will apologize, but I am not, I've got a smidge of Scandinavian blood within me. My husband is like super Swedish, like very Swedish American, very proud of being Swedish American. My son is very proud of that heritage. But, so trolldom it is the folk magic of Scandinavia. And so there's a
Mhm.
lot of things that are a part of that tradition that are cultural, right? So like you will never see me going out and saying, I teach folk magic, but you're not going to, and that's because I've studied quite a few different disciplines. I have very mixed heritage. And so,
Right.
and I've kind of gone through a lot of rabbit holes. And I have friends and teachers who are in different traditions. Like for one of my really good friends is, she's a practitioner of hoodoo and conjure, root work. That is a tradition that belongs to Black Americans. That is like, so that,
Yes.
and, and there's like a weird flattening that sometimes happens. That's the word that my friend Loretta always uses. Loretta de Ledesma, her company's called the Death Witch. And that, sometimes when you take these very like these practices that are accessible to everyday people, but they have cultural context that's core to what the tradition is. You can't,
Yeah.
you don't want to flatten it out and cheapen it by removing the culture. So I am a practitioner of trolldom, and yet my circumstances, I don't like, I'm a mom, I'm a working class person. I don't have like a ton of money or time where I can just go off to Sweden and study for like, weeks and go to the motherland and I will do that someday, but I have not been able to do that yet. And also,
Hmm.
I think my teacher would be the first person to say, in no way, shape, or form would you not be a trolldom practitioner because you don't have the money and time to go do this? Because trolldom is a magic of the people.
Right.
And so there's also too, he has students like I have, there's trolldom practitioners in China. There's trolldom
Right.
practitioners in like all over the world. And part of it is like, my mentor, he will often, he kind of gets, I tease him and I call him Yoda because he'll kind of be like, it's all in the flow and it's, and so, but it's like a tricky thing where I'm like, oh my God, like he's going to, like, he kind of will start talking about like the force basically, but won't use the term, the force. So it's just one of those things where you can be very, I'm very true to what I have been taught in trolldom. And also I recognize where I don't have a right to speak. And that's going to be about some of the cultural traditions. I can't say this is how you do, this is how you honor midsummer in a traditional
Right.
way, because I would be being very fake with
Yeah.
that. Does that answer your question?
I mean, I think
Yeah.
I think it does. Yeah. Um, what would be like, obviously, to seek out practitioners who have that cultural understanding would be how
Uh-huh.
to show up as like a meaningful guest at that table, and
Uh-huh.
like wait till you're invited, maybe, like put your hand up,
Well,
like I would like a plate at this table, please. you know
well, I will say though, sometimes that invitation comes in weird ways. So
okay, yeah, good.
for example, I was a hot mess as a medium and a new mother. Like for anybody who had, I mean, you all know this part of my journey, but I've always been sensitive. But it wasn't until I had a miscarriage followed by a successful, like, full term pregnancy and the birth of my son that like everything got really loud for me. And it was, I've had somebody once tell me, they're like, oh, it was easy for you because this just happened and then your gifts came in. And I'm like, I was like, "Excuse me?" Like, this was like me wondering if I like was having like I needed to go to like no, that was not
Like
it was not
a
this
grippy
cute.
sock vacation. Yeah.
Yeah, it was scary and it was hard
Yeah.
and it was like very isolating and it was awful, to be
Yeah.
perfectly honest. And so then
Yeah.
but then I'm like, "No, I am not developing schizophrenia. I'm
Right.
not like I just am because I'm having confirmation of like I'm seeing hearing things, and then
Yeah.
able to confirm that no, this is actually like this is true, this is accurate, all the things. And so I start trying to practice on my own, getting myself in like heaps of sticky situations, having like other prior teachers helping me out. And then it was Missy Rising, who's the owner of a shop that we have here in the Denver area called Ritual Craft. It's a really amazing witch shop, great teachers that come through, just a wonderful part of our community. And Missy had been talking about the spirit work she was learning as she was studying trolldom with this. He always tells me I can refer to him as just this grumpy old Swede. So she's studying with this grumpy old Swede. And so I asked Missy, I was like, hey, could you teach me? Could you tell? Because I'm really struggling here. And everything that you're saying seems like a fit for who I am and what I'm doing. And
Hmm.
she's like, I'll do you one better. Why don't you? He has a spot open for an apprentice. This is back when he used to work with people one on one. He now
Hmm.
works in groups so he can serve the community in a more effective way. And so that's how I ended up getting that seat with my mentor. But the invitation came from me being at like absolute desperation and just like telling someone like, hey, can you teach me what you know? And so sometimes I feel like spirit has a hand. I went through a period of
Yeah.
time thinking that trolldom actually wasn't where I was supposed to be because of the cultural piece. And so when I was graduated from my apprenticeship, my mentor kicked me out of the nest and I was like, okay, that was great. And then trolldom has adopted me, the tradition. And
Yeah.
so sometimes that invitation comes in strange ways, and take it as a gift, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
long winded.
And no, I love that
Yeah.
your the way that you talk and teach too has layers.
Yeah.
There's lots that you can glean from what you're saying. So please never apologize as a person with ADHD, and it takes me a long time to like get where, because there's so many different pockets of information that come together,
Yeah. And then you go off
Yeah.
here and then somehow it all comes
It all
Yeah.
comes back
together at
together.
some
Well,
point.
It all gets
I am
sprinkled
in good
together.
company then. Yeah, my brain is
You
like that too.
are.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Luna, you wanted to where was that question? There was a specific one.
I wanted
The difference between haunted places and
haunted
haunted
places. I wanted to talk
people.
about haunted places and haunted people.
Mhm.
Um and to get some of your opinions on that, because we've heard you talk about it before. We've talked about it before, and how we'll hear people talking, oh, every house I live in is haunted, and it's like, no, no, the
You're the
one who's
common
haunted.
denominator, my love.
um
Huh?
I don't really have like a specific question around it. I don't think. I just wanted to talk about it a little.
Oh my
And
God.
if
Like,
and any
yeah.
experiences that you could share, or
how
maybe
to
you have
how
some
to
personal
gently
experience.
like teach self-awareness to people.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh,
dude.
that's a good one.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's the kicker, right? And so like I feel like a lot of so I teach and I have all this other stuff that I do, but really, where kind of the crux of it is I'm a service provider. And so I do tarot readings, spirit contact sessions, animal communication, spell work, but then I have this really random one that's like conversation consultations, and that's like the kitchen sink one where people come in, and half the time those sessions are my house is haunted and I don't know what to do. And then we start unpacking it of like, okay, tell me about what's going on. And then it's like, oh yeah. And then the place that I lived before this and then this thing, like, and it's been, these things have been happening since childhood. And those are having to like that. Those are the moments of having to have these loving conversations of, I refer to them as like, I call it, being a natural medium, and that term
Mhm.
can sometimes scare people a little bit. But it's often like, that I often will kind of broach the subject around, are you incredibly sensitive to the energy of living people around you? The answer is usually yes. Do you go into a
Oh,
space and you
that's a
can tell?
lovely
Because again,
question.
we're around spirits. Living people have a spirit and an energy that they emanate. It's that classic example of you walk into a room where two people have been fighting or
Mhm.
making out or doing something that's intense, and you're like, whoa, what's going on in here?
Yeah.
And or sometimes knowing, like, one of my earlier things that I can't do it on command, but I have this really embarrassing thing that has happened since I was young, where I'll call somebody their middle name and they've never told me their middle name, or I'll make a reference to like, oh,
Oh,
that's just like a tourist to say
interesting.
that, and I don't know their birthday. And so that would happen like when I'd be working in coffee shops. I remember when I was interning on a Senate campaign, I remember there was this woman that I had just met, and it was like this big delegate convention. So I'm there for like a very specific reason. And I called her Janice, and she just zeroed in on me. And she's like, that is my middle name. How did you, like, she wouldn't let it go. And I was so uncomfortable because, again, I can't do it on command. And so
Yeah.
Yeah.
for those folks, I often, now, I mean, there's like, and then there's people who feel like and I will say this is rare. I do think sometimes there are people who do have genuine spirit attachments. There
Mhm.
are ways to get rid of those. My
Mhm.
preference is always to teach and empower people to do that themselves. You would be
Yes.
Yep.
surprised the number of people who have genuine spirit attachments who aren't ready to release it.
I
There's like,
know.
they have to be
Yeah,
ready. It's a weird mental thing.
I know.
And I've met people who've lived with, I mean, think real shit for like 10 years, 15 years. And until they're ready to say no and to keep saying no because things keep coming
Yeah.
back. So
Yeah.
I would say those usually 9 times out of 10, most people are just like they're natural mediums and psychics, and they don't know it or they're in denial. In a small handful of cases, it's somebody who has an attachment. Um, Sometimes they think that they have an attachment, and that creates an attachment that's like an egregore.
Yes.
That's real
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah.
And then there's other
Oh
times you
god,
just
yeah.
like, yeah, so that's like another thing that sometimes happens. And then it's the same thing with curses. Like if you
Yeah.
tell
Yeah.
yourself enough times that you are cursed, the call comes from inside the house. Like you will create a
Yeah.
curse.
It does. Yeah.
Like, there's
Yeah,
been
and then
times
there's
for
like just straight up
myself
haunted
too.
houses.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Like, there's been times for myself too where, I have a string of bad luck and I'm like, oh, something's going on, and I just do it like a cleansing, and it's gone, and it's like, was
Uh-huh.
somebody actually sending something, or was it me? You know?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, and this
Sometimes
is where I always think of like what my mentor taught me, it doesn't matter, because the goal is that this is where folk magic is so rad, because it's like, it doesn't matter. Like he always says, don't create story. You could go crazy telling yourself the story of who was it that did it, or was it me? And you create this whole narrative that makes it bigger. But at the end of the day, you just want it to be gone. And so it doesn't matter where it came from.
yeah,
Yeah.
you just deal with it. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I think that distinction is really really important too. The empowering people. Um when like there were so many people at the shop I worked at that would ask me to do things for them.
Uh-huh.
And that wasn't what, like, there was nothing I could do. Like I could, but that would be
Yeah.
expending energy that I didn't want to, I guess. Like, because I'd rather, yeah, because I can see it happening over and over and over
Uh-huh.
again. And then that just becomes this like
Kind of.
codependent relationship.
Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
that's not, and that's so that like I could just see it like become so draining. And then I'm like, but there are a lot of people that, yeah, that don't want to look at that part, and
Now,
which
on the
is,
flip side, just to play devil's advocate, because I always love doing that.
oh yes,
I will say,
yes.
because there is like, there also are traditions though of workers who that's their role. They have a specialty of helping people
True.
to work
Yes.
that out.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
one of the things that I often will, and I don't advertise this very broadly because I can, I only have so many hours in the day. I do a shitload of pro bono work with people who
Yeah.
they do, here's how you can handle this to yourself. They try it, but there are situations sometimes where you need somebody who's got a bit more experience. And there's a lot of workers. I mean, you
True.
see that like a lot of root workers, root
Yeah.
doctors in different traditions all around the world where maybe they do cleansing, healing, finding
Hmm.
things, hexing, cursing, things like that. And that's fine. There are some things that maybe are beyond a person's skill level, but I never think that it should personally I don't from the way that I work, I always want somebody to be able to handle their own problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you talk about this in in modern mediums too, about knowing when to ask for help
Hmm.
when a situation might call for somebody with more knowledge or
Yeah.
experience. And there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that.
No.
Heck no.
No, there isn't. Yeah.
I asked I
No.
I ask for help all the time. Like that's why community is so important.
It is.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Which is why that Discord is so cherished
Yeah.
by so many of us. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just want to put a plug into for I have my first group of apprentices who've been studying with me for 6 months, and their title is they're folk mediums. And so they have been learning some more kind of like like service oriented workings. And so I've been really, really proud of the work that they're doing. And I've been pushing them to step up a little bit when somebody has a need to be like, go get in there. I'm tagging them more often. And so I'm just really proud of some of the more like, I'm proud of everybody. And also
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's nice to see some folks stepping in and being of service in that way. So just
Yeah.
had to give a little
Yeah.
plug for the new folk
Oh, I
mediums that
love
are going to be
that.
graduating
Yeah.
in a month. So
Amazing. A month.
Yeah.
I
That's
know.
amazing. Yeah.
Oh,
Aw.
there's
So bittersweet.
Yeah.
so bittersweet.
Well, I think we have time for like a little bit more if you want to keep going.
Yeah, I always want to keep going. I won't stop until Sterling like logs off.
Um, we
You've got me for 25 more minutes. So I'm here. I'm down. Let's do it.
so we just have some like talking points here, but um, can you share with us a memory or a time where you maybe felt uneasy in a paranormal space, but chose to continue with curiosity at the forefront rather than fear?
Oh God, let's talk about the Beyond the Veil seances. Let's talk about
Ooh, okay.
2023 and 2024. So for folks who this is not, this is kind of like this is like the end. For me, it's kind of the crown jewel of what I'm able to offer through the school, even though I'm proud of everything. But this is my one in-person event. It is only open to people who have done modern mediums because I want us to all have a shared language, a shared foundation of information. And so, but I rent I find us a haunted hotel or a haunted Airbnb, and we all stay there and we practice paranormal exploration. And I'm starting to incorporate classes and we do local tours. So we learn a lot about history. And then we have like a big old hairy seance the final night, and then we all like go back kind of forever changed. Like I feel like, and so
Yeah.
I will say probably the most intense seance that we have had was I rented this mansion in this little town called Manitou Springs in the mountains in Colorado. It's kind of like it's south of, if you're not familiar with Colorado, Denver is our capital. It's kind of like in the center of the state. And Manitou Springs is about an hour south and like 30 minutes into the mountains west. And it is known for, it's a really weird place. The whole town is haunted. And yeah, I mean, we had everything from like time slips, people trying like driving back to the home after. Okay, there's going to be two stories. My two favorite, like these didn't happen to me, but they happened to students. So we have this one gal, so she gets there and she's exploring and she texts her sisters and sends them a text that says, "Leave it to me. I just arrived. Leave it to me to find door to the door that leads to the stairs to the creepy basement." And the day that we're leaving, I hear her say, "Where did the door to the basement go?" And we're like, "Honey, there was like, baby, there's never been a door there." And she's like, "No, there was a door." And then she shows us the text, and like, she's a solid individual. I mean, these are all people who have good heads on their shoulders. That's part of being a modern medium, is like you keep a good head on your shoulder. So, and then so there was another day that we all went out on a field trip and we're coming back. And again, like one of my oldest students, like she's super solid, like really practical, like very talented medium, but very practical human being. She keeps driving past where the house should be and the driveway should be. There's no driveway, there's no house. She goes past 2 times, same thing. She's starting to get a little panicked. On the third time, the gate is there, the house is there, everything's as it should be. I mean, it's like really cool, high strangeness kind of like thing. So that's like going
Yeah.
on just
Yeah.
like in the town. And so then we have this seance and we're in this like big dining room and we're down on we're all like down this long table. And we had everything from, so I'm kind of like I am facilitating, right? And I just remember we had everything from we're starting to begin and we start hearing heavy footsteps up above us. I mean, we all heard it. There were lights, like, just like the normal ambient light in the room that would just black out. There was this black mass in a corner that just kept manifesting and then disappearing, manifesting and disappearing.
Wow.
All of the equipment, because y'all know that like we're mediums, but we can also use equipment as like a reinforcement, right? It's kind of there as a
Yes.
support. All of it
Yeah.
is going
Yep.
off at one point. So I think that like the devices are like setting off this blue light because up in the rafters, we see these balls of like blue light that are just like, and I just was assuming it was from cat balls or maybe from some of the tracer lights I had. And no, it was the tracer lights are red. They're red and white. These were blue lights that were up in the rafters. We all saw them like with our eyeballs. But I remember for me
Wow.
personally, there was this one moment where I'm sitting there and I'm at the head of the table. Again, I'm the facilitator. I did have to, I've started warning my students after the fact because I realized those modern mediums had never seen me channel. And so people thought, and I kind of I kind of shrimp over a little bit. I close my eyes. I have my, head to my forehead through a lot of it. And so I've had to start like warning people because they thought there was something wrong with me. And I'm like, no, this is like me
Right.
doing the work. I'm not your teacher in this moment. I'm in it with you. But I
Yeah.
remember just sitting there, and there's this feeling when you're like in a really haunted area, like space, like where things are manifesting, and you get this like, it's like these roiling heebie jeebies where you just feel like your
Yes.
skin crawling from the inside out. And I'm having this happening. And it's that feeling of like, Sterling, you're the mentor. Like you can't lose your shit. But I'm just like, oh my God, like everything in me is saying run, but I'm like, I'm going to stay. And then I just looked at everybody and I said, there's someone standing behind me, isn't there? And I just see all these little faces just like nodding. So and then the other thing that was so weird too is that seance felt like it lasted 3 hours long. I mean, it felt like it took forever. It was only 90 minutes. And I mean, it was like
Time
we looked at the
stretching.
Yeah, it was like it was everything was weird. We
Wild.
finally had to shut it down we finally had to shut it down because it was like it felt like it was almost like that we turned on the light and spirits way beyond the home or that were with us were starting to like just and it just was that feeling of like we're not going to be able to
Oh,
hold the line because that's and
yeah,
that happened a
yeah.
little bit at the this year was at the Stanley. 2024 was at the Stanley. In 2025 we're going to haunted it's an old haunted boarding house in Bisbee, Arizona called the Oliver House. I just booked the place a couple weeks
Cool.
ago. And
I saw your
but yeah, in at the
Discord
Stanley, I
post.
remember oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Sorry, so I mean we
you
can the
mentioned.
stories that come out of Beyond the Veil, like we can
Yeah,
go for days, but those are just a
yeah,
couple.
yeah. You mentioned that like the place the picks you basically and picks the
Sure.
participants. So I think that's very, very interesting, especially with how active um the your like the groups are within
Yeah.
those spaces. Sorry, I didn't
One
mean
of
to
the
interrupt.
No,
Please,
it's
please
okay. I mean, we
continue with the
had
Stanley.
oh, god well, I'll give, like so there was one I'm gonna come back to the place picking us because there's a really
Okay.
weird synchronicity that happened with Bisbee that harkens back to the very first Beyond the Veil that we did in a place called Victor, Colorado. But the Stanley, it was one of the things that was beautiful about the Stanley was, the spirits there are just so friendly because it's like I don't know if
Mhm.
for folks who maybe are not familiar with the Stanley Hotel, it is most many people know it if from being fans of The Shining by Stephen King. And this was the hotel that the lore goes that he and his wife Tabitha stayed there, and they were the only. It was like in the 70s. It was the last night of the season. They stayed in room 217. They were the only people that were there, and Stephen King had this horrible nightmare that ended up in like he woke up and smoked a cigarette. By the time he was done with his cigarette, he had the inspiration for this The Shining.
Mhm.
And this hotel is profoundly haunted, but also playful. You will
Mhm.
genuinely you will generally have, like, a fun experience at the Stanley if that's what you're open to, but there was one
Mhm.
moment when we were in the seance where, I mean, we were sitting there and it felt like it was the same thing of, like, the floods are coming in, of, like, spirits that are like, "Oh, there's people that wanna talk to us." But we have, our wards in place and all of that. The doors were starting to shake, and we're all just, like, going, "Okay." Everybody focus on like kind of your, bolstering your protection that you have added to this. But and I was like, well, clearly what we're doing is working. But yeah, the doors were shaking and audibly to the point that we
Wow.
all heard them. That was weird. But the last thing that I'll say with them, the places picking us. So the very, very first Beyond the Veil was in this old mining town called Victor, Colorado. And it's very close to Manitou Springs. It is a ghost town. It was an unbelievably inhospitable place to have an event. Like, people there are really grumpy. I'm just gonna
Oh.
say it. Like, there's folks that are trying to bring this place back to life, and then there's people who would rather it just, like, kind of I don't know, it's a very strange place and very haunted and all the things, and a lot of really pivotal, moments in the labor movement, particularly for miners who were striking for workers' rights. Like there's that phrase 8 hours of work, 8 hours of play, hours
Yeah.
of sleep, 8 hours a day. That was
Mhm.
coined by this guy named Big Bill Hayward, who was this unbelievably corrupt union official. That, I
Oh.
mean, he had like this patsy who would do things like plant bombs in the mines. Miners died because of this, but then Big Bill could rally, like, whoop up the workers and say, "Look at these corrupt mine owners. They are not
Yeah.
keeping us safe and let's go on strike." I mean, it's crazy, amazing history. And so we have this great time in Victor, but I start getting all these like Bisbee has been calling for like I'm probably going to do a podcast episode just around like the labor movement parallels with, Beyond the Veil and the places that keep finding us. But the short end of it is that Bisbee also has it's a mining town, it's a copper mining town, has a lot of history. Victor burned down twice. Bisbee has burned down once, like during the peak
Wow.
of its mining days. And it also had a ton of really important labor protests and like was also had like there were big moments there too. And I was telling a friend of mine named Seth Browder, he's another medium. He helped me with Beyond the Veil, and he's just a very dear friend. I told him, I just would not be surprised if Big Bill Hayward had something to do with what's going on down there. and I did one Google search and found that Big Bill had a presence in Bisbee. So I don't know. I'm going down there in a few weeks, and I'm gonna go look. I'm gonna go look and see if I can find have a little conversation with Big Bill while I'm there. He's a son of a bitch. So, but I'm gonna. I still want to talk to him and be like, what,
Yeah.
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, what is the deal?
And if it's not you, who? Like, tell me.
Yeah.
So
Is it
sorry,
one of
you
your
asked me a
flunkies
question.
again?
I will.
Yeah.
What was that?
It-
I
there's a
said, is it
lot.
one of your flunkies again?
Oh,
It's
who
for Big
knows?
Bill.
Probably one of your flunkies. Yes. Sorry, you asked me
Yeah.
what time it is. I'm going to tell you how the watch is made every time.
It's okay. I don't remember what the question was, but I feel like that was a fantastic answer.
Move
What you asked me to
cur-
tell you one story
curiosity.
about a spooky
Oh
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
About
I,
choosing curiosity. Yeah.
I'm still holding out hope that once the current climate kind of chills a bit, there might be a beyond the veil in Canada sometime.
I have already promised. I mean, my hope is that everything chills the hell out. So that could be a
Mhm.
2026 goal. I have already made the
Yeah.
commitment. There's a decent number of
There's
you up there.
there's
Yeah.
quite a few of us, yeah,
Yeah.
that would love to. Yeah. So if you ever need a volunteer, we're happy to go and look at places for you.
Oh, I will be hitting you up on it. I couldn't do these events without like kind of local guides. So for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, um I think we're coming to the end of it, but I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and having a chat with us today. And I just want to ask you to share with our listeners if there's anything that you have coming up soon that you would like to highlight.
I do. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's so good to see you both. And I'm so proud of everything you're doing and just doing the good work and all the things. So yes, I do in the fall, I have another book that's coming out. I actually have under contract for two more. So there'll be a book coming out in 2025 and another one coming out in 2026. And I'm going to take a look. I have I'm getting like my mediumship books out of my system and just kind of being
Yeah.
done. But I have a book. It's a book called The Little Book of Spirit Communication. It's part of Llewellyn, who is the publisher I'm currently working with. It's part of their little book series. I'm super proud of it. It's an intro, but it's funny just because I wrote this 3 years after I wrote Talking to Spirits. So, and also too with like, I don't know, I'm really excited. I think even if like you've been doing this for a while, there'll be kind of new and interesting things in there. So I'm very excited
Yeah.
about that. But more like coming up and a little bit more important, I guess, is I am collaborating with my friend Loo Ledesma, the Death Witch, and we are going to be teaching a class. We're just getting the registration stuff put together, but we are going to be teaching a class called Beyond Binding, Clever Resistance Magic. And she is a practitioner of conjure and hoodoo. And also with my like advocacy background, like we're getting into mundane and magical strategies for getting involved and resisting. And there's turns out binding your enemies, especially those in public office, there's a lot of reasons why that's actually a great idea. Yes, you might be able to bind them
It's
from doing harm, but binding
true.
someone in office is actually like not there, there's a lot of other like things you can do. So we've got
It's
that
true.
coming up on Tuesday, February 25th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Mountain Time. That'll be $30. And then in late March, I'm starting it's a folk magic series. I have like this rotating class series called Folk Magic Fundamentals, and this one is going to be called Folk Magic for a Fight. And so it'll be 4 classes over 8 weeks, and it is both going to be advocacy training, active, like basically here's like some tips from like grassroots organizing, but also magical resistance, and then action steps that you can take if you'd like to in between each class. So it's kind of meant to be like a practicum. Here's what we're going to talk about it. Now here's a week for you to put it into practice in your community.
Yeah.
And
Do the work.
Yeah, that's so important.
do the work. And, there will be some options too. I have some bonuses that I'm going to be weaving in, little carrots of like, if you write your members of Congress or you do, something in this avenue, you will get like a playlist. You will get like a meditation. I have like a few other little perks. Like, I'm totally going to offer carrots to like help people to get
Yeah.
their feet wet and get involved. And then there will be some options of like ways to, um, kind of connect and keep making noise and making change because it's go time. So
Yeah.
those are some things that I have coming up, and yeah.
I love that.
Keeping that string of tension taut. I feel like that tension just right. I think that balance is really important, especially because like witchcraft is inherently political, and
Uh-huh.
um and that balance of spiritual activism with practical application
Uh-huh.
is just like anything else. It does take practice, and
Uh-huh.
I'm really excited to see how folks jump off from there. I'm excited to take that class
Yeah, me
for
too.
one.
I'm
So
I'm gonna take it.
I'm like I'm gonna head to your website as
Um,
soon as we get off.
Well,
But
there's nothing. So
can you
nothing's on there
can you
yet. I
send us the
literally just
links?
yeah. So right now
we'll
I
wait
have
for your
a.
newsletter.
Okay, thank you. I was like, I do have like a cognito
Okay.
form that I put together that people can kind of like get on the wait list. But also too, like, right now I'm doing a lot of like that political witch stuff. If people like that,
Hmm.
I'm starting to offer more in the Patreon, even for free members. I mean, of course, like paid membership really helps me to continue to like offer this. This is my full-time job. But when it
Yeah.
comes to like the political witch information, I'm trying to kind of just offer some thoughts. And I feel safe for offering things in my Patreon because I have a little bit more, I don't know, sometimes like I don't know, like social media and like YouTube feels a little too much like a big wide open sea. Maybe I'll get more comfortable
It
there over time.
does. Yeah.
But yeah, so a lot of things are in my Patreon, but you do have to sign up as like even just a free member, and there's a lot of goodies in there. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
There's
so
a
but that's
lot
it.
of
Thank you
ways.
for asking.
Yeah. There.
And we'll share any links that you want us to in the show
Okay.
notes as well, so people can find you and sign up for your newsletter,
Yeah.
Patreon, all of
There's
that.
lots of ways that you can connect with Sterling uh, and participate in all of the wonderful stuff that she has going on.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Also, really excited for that book. I was going to ask
Oh
you
my
about
God,
that.
yeah.
When's the next book coming?
October 8th. We're gonna have a
Hey,
yeah, we're
nice.
gonna have a Libra. We're having a Libra.
Yay! Well, it's so funny because the last Modern Mediums in 2023 ended on my birthday, and
Oh.
that felt like super super important. Like everything in that year was like
Very
was very
synchronistic.
synchronistic, and
Yeah.
yeah, so thank you for being such a big part of my journey and like the confidence that it took to put things into words,
Yeah.
that I was feeling and that I was practicing and didn't know that I was practicing. Like just being able to have a framework and for you to put it out there is a bigger gift than I think I could even express. So not just thanks for being, you, but the grander purpose of everything that you offer is very special and meaningful. So
Thank you so
and
much. That
well,
means a lot.
thank you. um I could gush about you all day, so I'm
I
just
could gush
going
about
to
you ladies too, like seriously.
yeah, so thank you so much for being with
Yeah.
us
Oh my
and
goodness.
for chatting with our Fridays.
Yeah. And being our first podcast guest.
Yeah.
We loved
Oh
it.
my gosh, what an
Yeah.
honor. Well, thank you so much. I loved getting to chat with you all today, and yeah, I loved hope everybody enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.